Perhaps just ensure that everybody's co-host that's on this meeting, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and those of us connecting from Europe. Good morning to you all. We would like to welcome you to this event, book discussion. The theme today is Africa's Development Dynamics 2021, Digital Transformation for Quality Jobs. This is a book published under the African Union, and we are honored to have one of the key authors or producers of the book with us today. The event is the first quarter book discussion of the CUT Library and Information Services. My name is Professor Mudoni Masinde. I'm the head of the IT department. You would guess digital transformation then is the core of my heart. I just would like to give you an overview of this book. We're not discussing the entire book. We'll be focusing on the 4 sections of the book, chapter 1, 2, and 3. And of course, given that we're in Southern Africa, we'll also focus on the area that focuses on the Southern Africa. I'm joined in this group today by our Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of research information, innovation and engagement, as well as Professor Mashele, who is the Dean of Health Sciences. The colleague who was involved in production of the book is also with us, like I said. His name is Mr. Francesco Napolitano. As you can see his face and you'll see him shortly. And 2 of CUT colleagues, Dr. Leandra Yordan and Lucky will be running the panel for us. To start us off, I'd like to give a chance to Professor Ngowi to give us opening remarks. Over to you, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director, and good afternoon to everyone who is in this panel. I read the book and really I was very excited for 3 reasons. Number 1 is that the book was recognized that for Africa to leapfrog in development, we needed to embrace digital transformation. And if we can get the skills of digital transformation, I can assure everyone that really we'll be able to work with the other developed nations who are on the forefront of the digital transformation. Then the second thing which I noticed from the book is the approach of making sure the whole of Africa participates. Because if individual countries or individual institutions go it alone, it is not going to make impact in Africa. But if all countries go together, then it is going to make impact. And I was very excited when I noticed that the book is recommending that kind of approach. Then the last thing I would like to mention here is that it's easier to talk about these technologies which are coming up, and it's a different thing to get that the skills of being able to use them for the activities which we are doing. It is often that in Africa we talk about things and we never get to participate and do it. So it's very important now we put the structures in place of being sure that we are making these skills available to as many people as possible. And once people have got the skills, then I think they can participate in the economy in the various ways possible. So let's put the emphasis on making sure that we put these skills to people. We put the structures in place so that as many as people as possible acquire these skills. And it doesn't matter the age. There are age people now who can read artificial intelligence, and you don't need to code. You need only to know the problem, and then there are tools which can help you to provide the necessary algorithm. So with that one, I would like to thank you again, and I would like to thank Professor Mashele for standing in for me. I would like to have participated fully, but because I'm traveling, Professor Mashele will continue what I was going to continue. So with these remarks, I wish you all the best for the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ngoi, for finding time despite you being on the travel at the moment. Before we hand over to Prof. Mashele, I just wanted to show you something, if you allow me. With the recent advancement with ChatGPT, I also did read the book and just wanted to confirm what Professor Ngoi has just said. That having the technology alone is not sufficient. You will need to apply it to a context. The screen is freezing a bit. Okay, I'll try that later. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you Professor Samson Mashele. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Health and Environmental Sciences here at CUT. He is also a director of the Drug Discovery Unit at CUT. His quest to quench his academic thirst led him to the Medical University of South Africa, Medusa, where he excelled in medical sciences and was given a scholarship sponsored by USAID to do part of his doctoral research at the University of Michigan in the US. He was also a visiting lecturer at the University of Michigan. After many years of teaching in South Africa, he went overseas as a professor at Medical University. He used the South African perspective in problem-based learning in helping to integrate modules in medicine, both vertically and horizontally. He is serving on the editorial boards of many international journals and as a panel member in Research Foundation, NRF. He has won many awards as the best facilitator several times in South Africa and overseas. He has supervised many students and published extensively in high-impact journals. His research interest in discovering novel anti-cancer drugs. He is currently collaborating with universities overseas, the CSR of South Africa, and the National Cancer Institute of the United States of America. With that, I'd like to welcome you, Prof. Mashele, to give us the highlights of this event. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the kind introduction. And good morning, colleagues. And thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words on this very momentous occasion. Well, as the program actually dictates, I'm just here to really indicate the role of CUT and the of the digital transformation strategy that CUT has. Now, if you look at CUT, according to the CUT Digital Transformation Strategy and Roadmap, the vision of 2030 of the Central University of Technology states that by 2030, University of Technology Free State will be a leading African university of technology, shaping the future through innovation. So the emphasis there is on innovation. As a university, we want to innovate as we move forward. So in alignment to this vision, CUT has embarked on a digital transformation process that will culminate in the adoption of new ways of doing things or of new ways of working. These new approaches will position the institute services in the face of changing technology, competition, stakeholder needs, and behavior. Also, it will engender the development of institutional resilience in the challenging, turbulent, and uncertain operating environment, especially as is being experienced under funding cuts. If you look at our strategy, two of the key objectives of this document actually states that to have every student be a digital student. This implies a student who can leverage and digital tools, skills, and other aspects that the university provides to them during their stay at CUT to ensure seamlessness and understanding of various digital pathways. This will culminate in their ability to handle some of their own education, particularly as it relates to skills development by themselves. The other very key objective of that document states that to have everyone at CUT to be constantly planning and updating their digital skills. So in a rapidly evolving by the quick and successive adoption and deployment of emerging technologies where skills come and go quickly, the ability of individuals to keep pace with such changes by continuous skilling, upskilling, and reskilling has become imperative and critical. As such, CUT's digital transformation vision seeks to provide multiple pathways for continuous skilling, upskilling, and reskilling of members of the CUT community. So, according to the list of the Library Information Services Strategic Plan 2021 to 2025, the broader focus of digital transformation will have a bearing on digital collections and services, research, enablement, and digital scholarship, teaching and learning, enablement, techno-savvy spaces, expanded postgraduate research support, collaboration with other libraries in Africa and around the world, and activities that illustrate the library's commitment to community engagement. So the Central University of Technology and its library information services can play then an important role in the execution of digital transformation by providing the necessary resources, training, and support to students and staff. Another important role that CUT and its library information services can play in digital transformation is by promoting and supporting research and innovation in the digital space. This can involve working with researchers and innovators to develop new technologies, tools, and applications that can help solve real-world problems and drive digital transformation in various industries and sectors. So as I said, as CUT, we've adopted 4IR, and in the process, we want as a university to be digital. So to be digital does not necessarily just mean to digitize. We can continue and digitize our operational backbone, which is what we are doing at CUT. But to be digital means to also come up with the real world solutions to the problems that mankind is facing. And of course, as CUT, then we want to play an important role in really being digital, meaning coming up with solutions to the problems using digital technologies. So the CUT and LIS can collaborate then to provide innovation and entrepreneurship through digital transformation. For example, the university can establish an innovation hub or a startup incubator that provides support to entrepreneurs and startups working on digital technologies. The library information services can support these initiatives by providing access to relevant research and resources. Lastly, CUT and the library information services can work together to ensure that digital transformation is executed in a responsible and ethical manner. This involves developing policies and guidelines around data privacy, cybersecurity, and ethical use of digital technologies. I think that is basically an ongoing process. I know that has all started to happen with the involvement of the library information services. The library can play also a role in supporting these efforts by providing access to relevant research and resources, as well as promoting digital literacy among students and staff. So overall, what we are saying here, the game plan is that the Central University of Technology and its library information services can really play a critical role in the of digital transformation by providing the necessary resources, training, and support to help students and staff develop the digital skills they need to succeed in the digital age. Thank you very much. And back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mashele. I take your parting shot that we need to ensure the technology use is ethical. I think my screen is working now, and what I did after reading or looking at the book, I asked ChatGPT to suggest some of the things that we can discuss today, in enabling us discuss how we can get our students to be digital. I did get some responses, but those of us who have used ChatGPT will know that it gives different answers at different times of the day and depending on which computer you're using. But I found them very interesting. For example, it was talking about ensuring that the university provide the resources that are necessary for our students to become digital. And that's exactly what Prof. Mashele was saying, that CUT has put a lot of measures in place to ensure that we support our students to become digital students. For example, number 5, it says to become a digital students, learners need to access digital devices, high-speed internet, and digital content and tools that support learning. And ChatGPT goes ahead actually and give us the page number where to find that information. And we assure you, apart from using ChatGPT to read the book, 3 of our colleagues will be giving an analysis and contextualize it to CUT. Before we go to the author of the book, we would like to request Besti to give us a few words. Besti, Esther, over to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Can colleagues hear me?
You can proceed, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Betty Esther. I'm the University Librarian at the Central University of Technology. I do note that we also have attendees who have joined us through YouTube, so we'd like to acknowledge that presence as well. Mine was actually just to do a very short opening and welcoming remarks, but because of Professor Ngowi, who is at the airport, we had to accommodate him and allow him and Professor Mashele to deliver their talks first. So from my side, good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to all the academics, the students, and the fellow librarians who have joined us. Allow me to recognize all of you in your different capacities. We are pleased that you have made time to join us, especially today, in our event, which takes place during the South African Library Week. Librarians in all sectors will this week be raising awareness on the importance of libraries in South Africa. Every year, our association comes up with themes that librarians center their celebrations around. This year, the theme of the South African Library Week is libraries telling powerful stories, and Professor Mashele has really summed up the role that we play, in other words, telling our stories. These are stories that raise awareness on the contributions and impact libraries make in the lives of South African citizens. The aim is to communicate our value with an event like this one. At the CUT list, we communicate our value in different ways. One of them is through creating platforms like this one, where the CUT community and many other stakeholders from outside the CUT come together and engage in meaningful discussions on important topics like the one addressed in the book we have chosen for today. The topic is even more important for us at CUT as it relates to the digital transformation strategy of our university. It is important for the CUT community to understand that the list does not just provide access to books. We go beyond this and ensure that the CUT community engages in book discussions, unpacking the contents of the books, listening to different perspectives and angles by different participants, applying thinking skills to make sense of how the book relates to our lives, and in this instance, the digital transformation. And of course, learning and applying what we learn from such discussions. We are therefore telling one of our stories today, which is about contributing to nation building through reading and discussing what we read about. I would just like to welcome all of you to today's panel book discussion on a book titled, as Prof has already indicated, Africa's Development Dynamics 2021, Digital Transformation for Quality Jobs. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof.
Thanks, Esther. I must admit that you're doing a good job because you made some of us read the book. And we would like to encourage you, the next quarter we'll be looking to the next book you're going to give us, and I assure you we will read it. At this point, colleagues, I'd like to invite Francesco. Francesco holds an MSc from Boccoloni University in Milan, Italy. He is an economist in the OECD Development Center's unit for Africa, Europe, and Middle East. As a matter of fact, the unit that produced this book produces other series of Africa's development dynamics. And you notice this particular one we are discussing today was the 2021 series. The African Union is a partnership with OECD in production of this series. And Francisco, apart from this current experience, he has previous experience working in the Central Bank of Europe, based in Frankfurt, Germany, as well as working with UNINDO, which is in Vienna, Austria. His areas of expertise include foreign direct investment, international trade, and SMEs access to finance. What an honor to listen to you, sir. Over to you, and thank you for honoring us.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to professors, colleagues, and all students connected. And thank you very much for inviting me to present this work on behalf of the OECD Development Center and of the African Union Commission. It is really exciting to present this report to Central University of Technologies, which, as we heard, it's a university that puts digitalization, digital transformation really at the core of its vision and mission. So this is really a very relevant discussion for all the university staff and students. So let me start by introducing you a bit to the report, to the rationale of the report. So first of all, by saying that the Africa's Development Dynamics report is a joint project by the OECD Development Center and the African Union Commission. And it also builds on contribution from and of course the aim of this collaboration is to support the African Union Agenda 2063. The report also builds on contribution from other African institutions such as AUDA-NEPAD and the African Capacity Building Foundation, as well as from African academics, so professors from African universities that have contributed to the drafting of the regional chapters of the report. And of course, also to the contribution of other OECD colleagues in other departments who share their expertise. Last but not least, of course, the report receives support from the European Union and from other European countries. So as you can see, this is really a collective effort, a collective project. So I'm very happy to present this on behalf of the teams at the OECD Development Center, at the African Union, and all the other contributions as mentioned. So Africa's Development Dynamics 2021 on digital transformation for quality jobs is part of an ongoing series of reports on policy making in Africa. We started off with the African Union Commission in 2018 with our first edition on growth, job and inequalities, and then since then, basically the common thread of the different reports has mostly been about productive transformation and job creation. And in fact, even as you can see in the digital transformation report, really the focus is much more on how digitalization can improve productive activities, how digital transformation, which are the opportunities and challenges that it brings about in terms of quality jobs in Africa. Last year, we published the 2022 edition on regional value chains for a sustainable recovery, which then also features some case studies in the different regions based on specific strategic value chains in each of the regions. And this year in 2023, we're about to publish our latest edition, which will be around the topic of sustainable investments in Africa. And also in this case, we will have case studies at regional levels on the sectors that hold the highest potential in terms of sustainable investments. In terms of the structure of the book, as you might have seen, the book contains 8 chapters. The first 2 are focused on Africa's overall digital transformation trends and policy priorities. And then we have 5 regional chapters on the 5 different regions as defined by the African Union Commission. And then chapter 8 has a specific focus on Africa's development financing. As said, for this presentation and for the discussion today, we will focus on the first 3 chapters, so the 2 continental chapter and the Southern Africa chapter. So let me start by saying a few notes on Africa's role, let's say, in the global economic outlook. Here, would like to mention that Africa holds a huge potential for contributing to global growth. As you can see in the left-hand side chart, annual GDP growth estimates for 2023 tell us that Africa is estimated to grow by almost 4%, and this is the second highest rate after developing countries in Asia, and so it's higher than in other regions. Of course, we also have to say that this growth, which has also been, let's say, quite sustained in previous years before the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, did not really, transfer into high quality and significant development gains on the continent. On the other hand, a huge, opportunity is for Africa's development in the long term is definitely Africa's youth workforce. Our latest estimates tell us that by 2050, Africa's workforce will more than double, as you can see on the right-hand side chart, and will account for almost 80% of the total increase in global labor force. So this is much higher an increase than in Asia and in other regions. This is, of course, huge opportunity, but also a huge challenge in terms of the investments that are needed to provide this workforce with the quality jobs that are needed. And this brings to my following slide about investments. So despite all these increasing and great potential of the young labor force, Africa continues to attract very low share of global investment, and recent global shocks have even exacerbated this trend. As you can see in this chart, we see that the Africa share of world FDI capital expenditure has been on a really small figures for the past decades, and it reached actually minimum levels in 2021, where Africa attracted only 6% of world capital expenditure, so the lowest level since 2004. And I said global crisis like COVID-19 pandemic, but even climate change and the current war in Ukraine, for example, are of course exacerbating this trend, making it even more difficult for African countries to attract investment. So this particular topic is being at the center of our next edition of the Africa's Development Dynamics report on sustainable investment, where we exactly look at some of the reasons that drive these trends. For example, information asymmetries, higher cost of capital in Africa than in other regions, and so on. And we'll also, of course, look at threats, but also opportunities that are emerging on the continent. And one of them is definitely digitalization and digital transformation, which was the topic of our 2021 edition, which we try to see how this process is affecting Africa's job markets. In this perspective, let me start by highlighting that, of course, Africa's increasingly educated youth is really the main and key assets for the continent digital transformation. I'm happy really to highlight this in front of university students today. With our estimates for the report, we estimated, as you can see in the left-hand side chart, that Africa's youth receiving post-secondary education will more than double between 2020 and 2040. In fact, as you can see on the right-hand side chart, the share of youth with post-secondary tertiary education will reach 34%. It's expected to reach 34% in 20 years' time, and this will be closer to current levels in Asia. For example, in Southern Africa region, this share will be even higher, like 38%, the highest level in Africa after the North Africa region. So this is a great opportunity to be tapped into for the continent's digital transformation. The digitalization of the continent, as you know very well, is also advancing quite fast. The percentage of population covered by 4G network in Africa increased from about 11% in 2012 to 58% in 2020. So very fast increase, but still this share is still lower than in other developing regions such as Asia and Latin America. On the other hand, we have the big mobile money revolution that is going on the continent. The latest estimates tell us that in 2021, Africa hosted 60-20 million of mobile money accounts, representing 70% of the global market value. And if we think that this number was only less than half, this was only 300 million in 2018. So really a huge and very, very fast growth. Also, this digital transformation project has been particularly accelerated by the recent COVID-19 pandemic. We looked at some examples, of course, but many others can be made. For example, in the area of digital education, by May 2020, so at the very early stage of the pandemic, the UNESCO counted 27 African countries that provided quality e-learning platform for students to allow students to connect and continue their studies. On the digital health front, the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which has been playing a major role during the pandemic to prevent the worst impacts of the contagion, launched a continental platform to support African governments to prevent and reduce the effects of the pandemic. And then digital payments, as I was saying, the money accounts are growing fast on the continent. And during the pandemic, several African governments and central banks introduced some policy measures to allow households and firms to use mobile money payments more easily. For example, introducing fee waivers and also removing limits into mobile money transaction. And so on. And these are just some examples. I think many other can be made. Overall, despite this huge and fast progress, our whole message from the report, let's say, is that jobs creation for Africa's youth really depends on diffusing digital innovation to all economic sectors and not just the narrow digital ICT sector. So in the report, we identified, we describe digitalization looking at the 3 different dimensions or sectors, if you like, of digitalization. One being the core digital ICT, content producing sectors, so telecom companies and so on. Then we expanded on towards a more a concept of a digital economy, so in which we would count Africa startups and tech firms that are really active in the digital space, like or the sharing economy and platform economies in general that really live out of the digitalization, and then a even broader concept of a digitalized economy. So how digitalization is actually changing current economic activities, like, for example, e-commerce or online sales for firms and so on. Well, using this, let's say, framework, we notice that in the core digital sectors, as you can see in the left-hand side chart, telecom, for example, the telecom sectors, these trends are really positive. Only in between 2007 and 2019, revenues and capital expenditures of telecom companies basically almost doubled in such in this short time frame. On the digital economy side, as you know, tech hubs in Africa are really growing very fast. Only in 3 years they doubled, and we have a lot of examples of tech hubs and startups ecosystem growing in Africa. For example, Cape Town, South Africa, is one of the most advanced startup ecosystem in Africa, with more than 800 active tech startups. Nonetheless, as I was saying, these sectors provide only very few direct jobs. If we think about the telecom companies, employ less than 300,000 workers on the continent, while we selected top 20 leading startups, best performing startups on the continent, we saw that these employ about 20,000 workers. Of course, this is nothing compared to the 29 million people that we estimate will reach working age every year until 2030. So really the effort is about, expanding the digital diffusion to all the economic sectors. And to do this, which policies, priorities, let's say, we identified, and here I would like to focus in particular in the Southern Africa region. So I selected 3 areas. First of all is, of course, the basics, like the digital infrastructure. So closing the spatial gap is the first priority. So to ensure reliable and affordable digital infrastructure beyond urban center. Here we have an issue, of course, of coverage and access. In Southern Africa, only 65% of the population. It's not only, it's already a good share as compared to Africa as a whole is covered by 4G, but only 34% has access to the internet. So, and even less in rural areas. And why is that? We identify different reasons. Of course, one being the quality of the connection, so the speed of the connection. Others being, of course, the digital skills to use the internet and the digital services in general, which I will mention later, but also affordability. We estimated that in the region, only 23% of the population can afford 1 gigabyte per month of data. And this is, of course, a major issue in terms of access. And also in the Southern Africa case, there is a specific 2D digital transformation. Here, I just bring an example of, you see the number of data centers that there are in South Africa compared to other countries in the region. So this 2-speed digital transformation needs to be addressed in a way that South Africa could play a more of a hub role for the whole region. And in terms of policy actions, of course, we mentioned effective regulations and public-private partnerships are key to improve both coverage and affordability of digital services. This means, of course, working on competition policies, for example, in the telecom sectors to allow a better coverage and better affordability of digital services, but also other type of interventions that might be needed to expand, the access to the digital infrastructure, especially in urban areas, more vulnerable context. Second policy area is about the competitiveness gap. So here we think that really empowering small firms, small and medium-sized enterprises is key, and give them the access to the digital technologies. Here we can see on one hand that digital trade activities in the region are increasing. They between 2005 and 2018, export of digitally derivable services, which are financial services or e-commerce sales, are more than almost doubled in this period. But these were mostly driven again by South Africa, large e-commerce platform and firms. On the other hand, we see big sides and spatial divides that persist. 71% of large firms have a website compared to only 31% of small firms. And even location-wise, if we think that 70% in Southern Africa Customs Union countries have using have their own website, and this is lower in countries outside the Customs Union, which of course enabled digital transactions better than in countries outside the Customs Union. So here we think there are many existing regional initiatives that aim to create a single digital market, we could say. So trying to digitalize all the value chains in a regional perspective. But we counted, for example, almost 30 regional initiatives that to try to work on at the regional level on improving, creating a digital economies for all firms to engage. But we also noted that most of the times the issues about implementation is about national country, implementation of these high-level regional guidelines and so on. So the implementation and the engagement with the private sector, large, telecom company groups would be really key. And third, and last but not least, of course, is about the social gap and providing youth with the right skills for the digital economy. Here we can mention a few issues that I would like to highlight. One is about the education divide, let's say, in access to digital services. For example, as we can see in the left-hand side chart, the access to the internet is very different depending on the education levels, and this calls for targeted policies at developing skills into from very basic skills in primary schools and so on to more advanced higher education policies for more advanced skills. Then there is a big issue of skills mismatches. We really put this forward a lot in our report, and I bring here an example in South Africa, where we have a recent OECD paper that tells us that more than 50% of South African workers actually they think they do not have the right skills in their current occupation. This means 28% of them they feel underqualified, and 24% they feel overqualified. So here again, policies are really important in trying to address this skill mismatch. And then there is, of course, also a formality divide. The share of workers who use internet regularly is only 60% among self-employed on-account workers, and it's much higher for waged workers. And if we think about that, self-employed workers represent more than 50% of employment, which is mostly in the formal economy in Southern Africa. This is, of course, a big issue. And if we add also that in Africa as a whole, the self-employed population, despite not having access to internet regularly, they do own, like most of them, 80% of them, they own a mobile phone. So here really the issue is about the skills, you know, that they are needed for these workers to be able to make the best use of digital technologies. Here, of course, many things can be mentioned on policies for youth skills development in the digital area. I would like just to mention again the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw really a lot of good practices also among schools and university in accelerating the digital adoption because of COVID-19 pandemic, but then stayed afterwards. And so, you know, assessing the what has been learned during COVID for the future, I think it's very, very important. And then I think the one of our policy messages for skills development is about really updating those technical vocational education training programs to really serve the challenge of the digitalization. So in terms of addressing the skills mismatches, we know that, and at the same time addressing the issues of self-employed workers. We know, for example, in South Africa, we have a two-sided scenario. For example, digitalization might have may bring about some risk in terms of automation of some manufacturing activities, for example, in the automotive sector that is so important in the country. At the same time, we see that workers of the digital economy, so-called platform or workers that work for digital platforms, are really booming in the countries, and therefore there is a need for updating the digital education and to be able to address those skills mismatches and accompany workers in this transition. Of course, here again, the role of universities and training center and so on is very, very important, and many examples can be made on how to do this. And here really I'm really looking forward to the discussion, to hear also from representatives of the university and professors and students on what can be done. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Francisco. That was insightful. As you are presenting, I picked up the issue of affordability, and I'd like to mention that at the national level, the government has put a lot of measures in place. For example, trying to negotiate with telecoms to have data that doesn't expire, although I don't think we have achieved that yet. And at the provincial level also, for example, the province of the Free State, where the Central University is located, they are running a national or regional NEMISA, which is a center to upskill citizens, focusing on upscaling up to 1 million citizens. At university level, every student who comes to CUT has to enroll for digital literacy course. But still, to me, that's half full glass. We have a lot of empty space in the glass. For instance, Bloemfontein was not mentioned anywhere. Bloemfontein is the city where we are speaking from. And out of curiosity, I just posed a question that I was asking, please tell us what this book says about Bloemfontein. It says it does not specifically talk about Bloemfontein. However, it does give us good insight. So thank you very much, Francisco. People following from YouTube, we are entering a very important session. We would like to have an open debate. And at this point, I'd like to request my two colleagues, Lucky and Dr. Jordan, if you could come to show your video. Thank you, Leandra. So Leandra holds a PhD in the area of ICTs. She has experience in ICT and information systems in higher education support services. Her niche area is in prioritizing the user and information. Specifically, her PhD research in the field of information systems focused on practices, ethics, value judgment, and the role of power, making her study area practitioner PhD. She has extensive experience in ICT and communication fields and references both to contribute to creation of digital literate workforce that collaborates, creates, and innovates. Over the years, her innovative approaches have won her several awards in recognition of her practitioners' value in her field's work. She also is an active member of the labor union, which has given her considerable exposure to labor relations, including facilitating conversations, consensus building, negotiation, and employee engagement. Doc, thank you for joining us in the panel. I'll give you a chance to run through the first question. But before that, I'd like to introduce Lucky. Lucky, if you could kindly come to the screen for viewers to see you.
Prof, the device that I'm using does not have a camera, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Lucky. So
Apologies,
Lucky
Prof.
is currently the Deputy Director, ICT Infrastructure Services at CUT. He holds a BTech in IT as well as a BTech in project management. He has experience in managing IT complex systems and networks and ensuring security of such, as well as he has experience in managing IT projects that address organizational objectives. He has more than 13 years experience in the education sector. So you can see we have a panel that knows almost everything about digital transformation. And I would like to start with you, Doc. You're done with your focus. And also mention, please, those of us watching us from YouTube, just type in your questions. We'll pick them up and address them. Thank you. Over to you, Doc.
Thanks, Professor. Appreciate. So I'm going to jump off because I want us to get some information from Francesco. This book was phenomenal. I really enjoyed reading it. There's so much information. Sometimes I had to wait 2 pages back, start again. I should have thought of reusing ChatGPT. I didn't, and now I feel like I should put the whole book in there with all my questions. It was a very smart thing, Professor, very smart. So let me start with my first question. It was in chapter 1, and you also touched on it during your presentation, Francesco, but you mentioned that digital sectors create few direct jobs, which are insufficient to meet the continent's employment needs on their own. So jobs in ICT services are limited and remain concentrated in a few countries. And this broke my heart because we've been pushing ICT. So obviously I'm completely biased, I'll admit that. And to hear that, even though that has been done, we still have an insufficient number of jobs coming out. So in the digital ecosystem, it will not provide jobs for young Africans in the near future. The potential is in diffusing digital innovations from leading firms to the rest of the economy. So understandable, but frustrating too. So my question is, at CUT, we're a university of technology. So we focus on STEM, science, technology, and mathematics, work integrated learning. We teach our students, but we also put them in the workforce so that they can get practical experience. We have career-focused education. We don't want you to just walk away with theory. We want you to be able to apply your skills. Obviously, then, based on that, applied research is very important to us. And we have a really big focus on entrepreneurship. We create partnerships with business and industry. We incubate ideas. We assist you with intellectual property registration. It's a very complicated and expensive process. So is this what we should be doing as a university? Or is there another focus you think would better serve the Africa's growth?
Thank you for this interesting question. Yes, indeed. I mean, all the activities that you mentioned, that they are really centered also on the policy advice that we also gave in the report. So I would already define the CUT as a best practice in this domain in terms of entrepreneurial focus and working with the incubators and so on. Maybe just a couple of points that I would like to add here. I think is about the issue and the concept of digital skills in general, right? Here, I think we are not talking about the basic digital literacy skills. We're talking about skills in the private sectors, for example, that can be very different, right? Depending on the sector and on the business that we're talking about. So different workers, different managers will need different skills depending on the specific sectors they are in. So, for example, agribusiness managers will need training in how to use financial software to track income and expenses, for example. Workers working in more managerial position will probably need more tools to use and to analyze results from software programs and online presentations, for example. In the tourism sector, digital skills would be probably more focused on marketing and others. So I think here the challenge is really to make an offer to the youth through the involvement of the private sector that is specific to the different needs that are there from the private sector, and this can of course only be done through a continuous engagement with the private sector communities in the city, in the region where you are in. I understand, of course, the challenge that this cannot be done from a single university by itself. So that there are issues in terms of funding and capacity. So this leads to my second point, which is about a partnership, right? So once we are clear what are the skills needs in the local economy, then I think starting and engaging in partnership not only with the private sector but even with other universities or even with the government can help scale up the impact of this type of initiative. Then you could have an offer that builds on the competencies and on the expertise that different universities in the area have and can utilize, can leverage to serve the demand of the job market.
Thank you very much. Those are some very good items to look at for us.
And Leandra, as you were saying, you didn't ask ChatGPT. I did ask it on your behalf, and the response was quite interesting. But before we do that, Lucky, we'd like to give you a chance to take on a question. While Lucky, you're preparing, we do have a question from one of our stakeholders of CUT. He would like to ask about some of the development, especially in the research area that we've done on how to enhance access of electronic information for disadvantaged, especially those in the rural areas and informal settlements. I would like to put Beste on the spot, if you're still with us, if you could partially respond to that, and then we'll get Lucky to ask and discuss one of his questions. Beste, please.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Probably our colleagues at the Research and Development Studies would probably know, we at this stage do not have a database that shows current research that has been conducted by our researchers, but it's very interesting. I would like to have something like that, maybe even from the library, So we will liaise with the research, development and progressive studies to find out if they have anything. If they don't have, I think it's a project that we'll have to put in place so that we know who is busy conducting research on what, especially topics that are related to providing access to especially people who are disadvantaged. So it will be very interesting to see, to Councillor, what is happening at the moment. For now, I don't have any of that information at hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Vesti. Maybe I could just mention that one of the things we've done, Councillor, at the moment we use Blackboard for e-learning. And sometimes, especially during COVID, we realized that when you ask students from rural areas to connect to a Teams virtual class, it was very difficult. So two things, at that time we were negotiating with telecoms to ensure that if the students are accessing CUT content, it was zero rated. And then we avoided using heavy consumers platforms like Teams and Zoom, then would use Blackboard Collaborate. But this is not to promote different products. I'm just giving that as an example. Thanks, Besti. Lucky, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Prof, and good afternoon to everyone. Prof, mine is it's very much a generic question with regard to the emerging technologies, and I would like Francisco to answer to that. And the question reads as follows: what will it take for Africa to transform traditional universities to be fully digital and operate in platforms like the metaverse, which is considered as a 3D virtual space? And what will the impact be in terms of the job creation initiatives? Thank you very much. Was I clear, Prof?
Yes, you're clear. I'm just waiting for Francisco to speak. Francisco, you're mute, sorry. Francisco, you're mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So thank you, yes, thank you very much for this question. So what will it take? So I think, as mentioned in my presentation, first priority is, of course, which goes without saying, is about the information and the ICT technologies, right? So if we don't really win that challenges of expanding and making it affordable, then this will also not be possible to transform African university into fully fledged university in the digital digital space. Then I would like to mention maybe two policy areas that would be very important. One of them is about attracting investments. Like we did investment from Africa and outside of Africa to make African universities, and not only digitally empowered, let's say. And this, of course, cannot be done if we don't improve the overall investment landscape on the continent, if we don't mobilize resources from private companies. There are maybe a few positive examples from other regions that manage to really promote digital transformation at the regional level, which then also benefited the education system. I'm thinking here, for example, at the case of the European Union. I think one of the big accomplishment was, and it happened in recent year, was the ending of roaming charges across the different countries. It is something that, for example, in the Southern Africa Development Communities policy agenda ranks very high, but it has not been possible to do up to now. And then, of course, other issues include policies and regulations on data protection, for for example, which are very, very important. We counted in the Africa's Development Dynamics 2021 report only about 11 African countries, if I remember correctly, that have fully put in place digital data protection policies. Is of course a big issue in terms of accelerating the digital transformation process. And here again, lessons from other regions could be very important. Overall, I think what would be needed would be really an approach at the regional level, if we're talking about Southern Africa, but even more at the continental level, to really coordinate policy actions of the different member countries and engage the bigger telecom partners, telecom private companies in a way that is as effective and as inclusive as possible. I hope that helped answering your question.
No, thank you very much. You stated it right on spot. I just wanted to show the response we had, but essentially it says that they're setting up policies alone, having a very clear digital transformation agenda may not necessarily be sufficient. And I thought this was very good for us. For example, it says here, we need to build those partnerships, like the lucky and implied, to incubate ideas. Or we're doing that already, like Leandra said, but it's not sufficient. We just need to address other broader issues, for example, in terms of sustainability. Francisco, at this point, I would like you to, looking outside in, looking at us as CUT, and pose a question or discussion question that you think we should consider now for all of us, not just the two people, but everyone in the room. Francisco, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, as I mentioned briefly during the presentation, we saw and everyone saw a lot of that during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of innovation emerged. And the COVID-19 pandemic has been, of course, a huge challenge in terms of the digital access issues that, during lockdowns, not everyone was able to access internet and therefore access to online platforms, etc. But at the same time, schools and university often manage to really leapfrog in very short time to digitally delivered services. So, and in some cases, this was helped by policy making, by governments, central governments, but some others, it was really spontaneous innovations, let's say. So here is my question is about what was CUT experience during the pandemic, like how challenging it was, what opportunities emerged, did government helped in some way, and also what lessons learned you have drawn from this experience in terms of the digital of your digital agenda.
Thank you for that question. And partially mentioned some of those where we are zero rated content. Most lecturers put content online, and that has continued to be the case. I'll like, however, not be the only one responding. I'll ask Leandra to respond, and also we'll give Prof. Mashele a chance. At that point, he was acting DVC for one of the units, so he will be able to give us quite some answers. So Leandra, and then Prof. Mashele, please. Thank you.
Okay, there was a number of things. I think we were trying to push digital adoption for a few years. And what COVID did was it did that adoption in a very short period of time. For example, we've had Microsoft offer the 365 on campus for a few years, but people weren't engaging on MS Teams and kind of sharing, making folders and groups and working in teams there. And all of a sudden, all of us was on Teams. We were doing our meetings there, we were making groups, we were engaging. So instead of slowly adopting that technology, which would normally be the case. We all just did it in a couple of weeks. It wasn't always as smooth, but it happened. So necessity made that adoption go much faster. In terms of communication, we're a campus or we've got 2 campuses, but people are together. And so when we communicate in internal ways, and all of a sudden we were dispersed, people were all over South Africa and even some instances in other countries in the world. So our public platforms became internal communication platforms, and we're still working on reverting that back to communicating internal things internally. It's made a change. And also the question is, do we want it to become internal again? We are a publicly funded university. Some of it stays outside, some of it comes back inside. And one other thing that I would like to mention is devices for students. I think Lucky can expand on that, but we've got labs, 24-hour labs on campus. Students had access to computers all of a sudden at home and no more devices available. So we've had to, in a very short period of time, get devices like laptops or tablets to students so that they could access these electronic systems that we had available for them. Let me stop.
Thank you. Prof. Mashele, do you have closing remarks for us on this? How did we manage during COVID, and how have we translated that to today's working environments in CUT, especially for students? Prof, thanks.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I think most of the points have already been covered, but obviously under COVID-19, we face quite a number of challenges because in some cases, you find that you've got students in very remote areas. How do you then reach those students in very remote areas? And you'll find that maybe, yes, you can maybe talk about zero rating and so forth, but you find that maybe in those areas, then students, there's no connection at all. And that was the huge problem. So the issue was to say also, maybe universities can just do so much. Some of these things has to be done by government, because in those very rural areas, I think there should be a place, as the government has actually indicated, there should be a place where maybe students can go to access maybe Wi-Fi or something of that nature, because in some cases as a university, you cannot maybe go to a very rural area and now start to maybe install your Wi-Fi and whatever. It's not the work of a university. That's where maybe government needs to come in. But you will see that as a university, we've actually tried to, use some of the things that we use under COVID-19, like now, even when it comes to telephones and so forth, the Microsoft Teams and so many. So we've tried to adopt some of these things as we move forward as a university. You'll see also that under COVID-19, there were challenges, especially about students who maybe practicals, because in some of these qualifications, you need to really do things practically. How do you do that? Because you cannot maybe come to campus to access your labs and so forth. And we find that there are some of these softwares where you can simulate some of the things, at least for students to have some basic knowledge of basic skills, how to hold a beak, how to pipette and all this kind of thing. So some of these things we've also, maybe as we move forward, we've incorporated these things to making sure that, yes, some of these softwares can be incorporated to making sure that in some cases we have a situation where some students can maybe say we can have a hybrid. Some of the practicals, we can say now we're doing some of these practicals online because of this kind of software. So some of these things we've managed to incorporate as we move forward to making sure that we don't just go back to how things were before the pandemic. And some of the things, as I said, colleagues have already touched on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And what a final remark you made, because in the program today, we'll also request one of our colleagues to demonstrate the use of augmented reality, which would really help bridge those gaps where, for example, health sciences students are not able to go to the labs, but they can see different aspects of the experiments from wherever they are. I know we are not doing justice to this very valuable book, but we would like to give our two panelists 1 minute, 60 seconds each to give us parting short and summaries. But from where I'm sitting, I realized that one of the problems we have in CUT and our ecosystem is that we do not have many of those startups that we find in Cape Town and Johannesburg. When the mega companies set base, they always start in Johannesburg, they go to Cape Town, they go to Durban, and no one remembered to stop at the middle of the city. So it's a bigger challenge, and it's not just, it's beyond CUT, and that I think could help. And maybe especially for the students who are listening online, it's a challenge for us. Do research on some of those startups. You realize were started by young people, students like you. You do not necessarily have to be a computer science student or an IT student. You need to have a business idea and embed digital skills into that. Voila, you have a big business that can employ not just yourself, but many of our students. So with that, then I'll give Lucky Leandra a few seconds, 60 seconds for final remarks. And no, Dora, I'm putting you on the spot. I would like you to also give us 60 seconds of the summary. Because this was a very great idea of choosing this book, especially the agenda you want for the CUT community. So Dr. Jordan, Lucky, and Dora in that order. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Professor. I appreciate being part of this panel and the information that's come through in it. I think one thing that we need to realize, being located in the middle in a digital time is an advantage, and we should really take more advantage of having the whole global world in the palm of our hands. And make those partnerships, like Francesca was saying, with other universities in the area and other businesses, and play to the strengths that we have, and not focus on what we don't have, which is easier sometimes than to see what you do have. They are phenomenal students and employees, and just this region is so, it's a thriving place with a lot of potential, and already it is being deployed. So let's just keep going and make it bigger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leandra. Lucky.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm also honored to be part of these insightful discussions on the digital transformation, and also to indicate that I am happy to see that Africa is also taking that direction very rapidly to ensure that we use the internet. And I was very happy to see how you posted some of the questions on the chat GPT, Prof, and then getting some insightful information from there. Coming back to our university, yes, we are working very hard to ensure that we fast track this digital transformation, and then at the end of the day, we are going to benefit not only the university, but also all other stakeholders within the university and the surrounding of Bloemfontein. Thank you very much, Prof.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much for participating, Francisco, from coming in all the way from France, for those of you that didn't notice. And this was really a book that came to me, and I was so excited when I saw the title of the book, and I immediately realized this book speaks directly to the agenda of our, not just the CUT, but also as a library and all our strategic plans for the next 5 years. And thank you very much for the opportunity and the way this whole event was unpacked. But I think we are not completely done yet. We still have one last trick up our sleeve, but this book, I think, turned out to be even better than I have initially expected. So I hope you will be able to take the time and read through the book. I know we focus only on chapters 1 to 3 for today, because due to time limitations, but please take the time and read through the books, especially the last chapter also, that contains a lot of statistical information. So please don't hesitate to go back and revisit that book. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dora. And with that, I'd like to invite our colleague who is going to show us a presentation on augmented reality. Over to you, Mweketsi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Prof, for the opportunity to present about augmented reality. Most of us, most of the people, I can put it that way, they're familiar with the concept of virtual reality, whereby we are replacing the current environment, the real environment, with a simulation. We see these things whereby we play 3D games, we use the goggles, that's what everyone is familiar with as we speak. But now when we talk about augmented reality, we are talking about enriching the real world with the digital world information and media, such as videos and 3D objects. So basically, I can say we are manipulating the real world so that we can bring everything that is digital to where we are. So one may ask, how can we achieve this? How does a single phone be able to bring everything inside the house? So your camera is being overlaid at that time when you want to enter the augmented world. So the simple thing, the way I can explain it in simple terms, I can say that the augmented reality is live, direct, and indirect at the same time. So I know that's confusing because the view is being, the physical view, the real environment is being augmented by the computer-aided senses. So what do I mean by augmented? It's such a big word, I know. Is that we are making something greater in size and in amount. So you will see as I demonstrate this, I just wanted to clarify some of the few concepts regarding virtual reality and augmented reality. And the sensors that are being used in the computer, we can speak of sound, we can speak of GPS data, we can speak of videos, even the graphics. So how does one achieve this technology of augmented reality? So there are two concepts, or maybe let me say technologies that are being used to achieve this, which is your computer vision, and number two, it is your object recognition. So, just a second. Once you enter this augmented reality world, the advantage of it is that it's interactive and it's digitally manipulated. So I'm just gonna use my phone here to display the augmented reality. As you can have a look in the room that I'm at, there is couch there is nothing. So let me just do this first. Since I'm an engineer and I'm involved in the tech space, I'll be taking everyone into the manufacturer where they use robots to manufacture cars. So I'll just start my demonstration. So like you see, there's still nothing. When we point at our computer, so as you can see here, we are going to the manufacturing. As I zoom in, I'm going closer. So, okay. So now I can go inside the car while I'm still in the house, and I can be able to view all the robots that are in that place at that time. That's why I was saying it's live, it's direct and indirect at the same time. So I can be able to go further and see exactly what are those cupboards for. Sorry about that, let me just zoom out here. So we can, like Prof. Masinde said, we can be able to achieve this if students can go to labs. They can be able to perform their practicals. They can be able, let me say for instance, doctors, they can be able to perform operations using this kind of technology. Then one other thing that is important that people may get confused of is that we have a concept called mixed reality, whereby you are mixing all these things. If you can have a look now, we are inside that car directly, but I'm still in my house. So, thank you. So what if, just in conclusion, the sectors, since we are speaking about digital transformation, the sectors that are the keys, key sectors which will be affected by this kind of technology, that has advantage. It's your urban expansion, it's your shopping, it's your traveling, because now, for instance, you can be inside the hotel that you're gonna book for your holidays while you are still in your house. You can view everything while you're still in your house. And one last thing that I would like to say about this is that augmented reality, it gives us more advantage in a sense that we are able to manipulate everything, be able, let's say we are renovating, be able to see all the renovations that you are going to do at that time. So I don't know, Prof. Masinde, if I did justice to the task that I was given, but I hope so that I get the invitation next time. Thank you.
Definitely, yes. We'll start off by using your technology to teach students how to assemble and disassemble computers. Thank you so much. That was very good.
Okay, Prof. Masinde, maybe just to give them a fresh mind, we see these technologies in movies. Like, it's a movie that came out a long time ago, Kingsman 2, whereby they have meetings with people that are not inside the boardroom, but everyone can be in the boardroom at that time. So thank you so much for blessing day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for concluding it so nicely for us. With that, to everyone online and to colleagues in the Zoom meeting, would like to give Beste, who is actually the owner of the bigger project of the library, to give us closing remarks and thank you message. Beste, over to you.
Thank you. Prof, today I will be Betsy. Thank you. We had a quick change of roles here. We're sitting actually next to each other here today. First of all, I would like to thank Francesco Napolitano. It was quite an interesting task to choose out of 2 pages of possible authors. We were given your name by the OECD, and thank you so much. I think you brought finesse and insight into a book that could be otherwise very complicated. And so thank you very much for participating in our event today. I would also like to acknowledge Prof. Ngowi and Prof. Mashele. We appreciate that Prof. Ngowi literally came off the airplane this afternoon, and that's why he was able to join us only for a very brief minute or two, and to pledge his flight for this whole event. So thank you for Prof. Ngowi and also Prof. Mashele for your feedback and how your insights into how the CUT and the library can play a role. I would also like to acknowledge Prof. Masinde, Prof, I think I perhaps threw you in the deep end with this event, but thank you so much for participating and playing a very critical role in bringing everybody together. I think it was, and also ChatGPT, I must admit on the side, I've also been doing my own research, perhaps from the other angle on why not to use ChatGPT, but perhaps you've proven me wrong this afternoon, but I will continue with my own research there as well. And then I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Leandra and my colleague Lucky Marcello, both of them experts on their fields and always willing to listen and to participate and to lend me an ear in a moment where I sometimes get confused with all these new technologies. So thank you for playing your role as well. And then Dr. Moketsi, thank you so much for your presentation. And in his absence, Prof. Ben Kotze that recommended you and your EON program. I don't think you've mentioned what the program was that you've used. So for those of you who was wondering what program it was, the CUT is subscribing to the EON platform. And that was the presentation that the demonstration that he gave us. I would also like to acknowledge our University Librarian, Ms. Betsy Eyster. Thank you for giving us the time and the effort and opportunity. Thank you, Betsy, for being here today and so embracing the moment. I know sometimes we get crazy ideas and we see a book and we think it can work, but sometimes in the smallest of your heart, you think it cannot work. But I think the success of today proves that it was the proper book to open our panel book discussions for this year. So thank you very much. I would also like to acknowledge my other team members, Shireen Matupe de Silva, my colleague from Welcome Campus, James Cieli, as well as my colleague from Lofoten, Nono Mosala, who play a critical role in this event. But I would also like to acknowledge the behind-the-scenes colleagues, Joyce Smith and Sam Lechloka, that also in the initiative part of this process also participated. And then also the technical assistance of my colleague Stefan Ferrara, as well as Dr. Leandra Jordan, for the Zoom link for the people that participated, but as well as the people that linked in from home via YouTube. So thank you very much. I must acknowledge, despite all the interesting challenges that our country experienced today, we had 42 people that has joined us online. Perhaps it was more because I was trying to double task, but we will share with you the statistics afterwards. But I must also acknowledge the fact that all our YouTube links for the library events like this one will be in the end categorized and as a library for the library. And so afterwards, all our events will be, you will be able to visit it and check it. Also, we had 2 book events last year as well. So please look out for the library's link. And thank you for everybody's participation and willingness to participate. So without any further ado, Prof, one final word from you.
No, if I say anything now and I'll spoil it. Thank you so much. Just like to ask Leandra if she can take us one virtual photo, then we leave the room. One virtual group photo. Over to Leandra. But thanks so much, colleague. It was an honor being on the steering wheel for this vehicle.
Okay, cameras on. Who's wearing their pajamas? Let's see.
Cameras on.
I'm seeing people abandoning my photo.
We're missing Francisco. Can you see him?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, just hang on for me. Let me just
Francisco
open
is there. Yes.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. I think we have who we're gonna have. I'm gonna take the photo.
Oops. Askies, Leandra.
Okay, everybody, if we can have
Cheers.
smiles on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. Hold it, hold it.
Yeah, I was bounced.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Guys,
so much.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. But you Stefan? Stefan, kan ek maar afeindig? End meeting for all. Stefan, waar is jy? No, it's fine. Oh, ja, asseblief. There was some confusion about that as well. Hi, kan ek maar eindig wat ek sien die livestream is toch aan die gang.
Ja, nee, je kan eindig. Ek is nie hier so.
Okay.
Ek kan niks doen nie want
Jy is die host nie. My host. Okay. Okay, ek maak jou host.